programmers or so, it also has a real impact on how you build levels, how you build art, how you set up effects. I mean, it impacts everything, the whole development. Once I've set up some basic example, I'm going to set up a basic lightning strike, very basic thing. I'll open up the rest of my game, and I'll take a look at some of the blueprints I built for my game, and so you get a bit of a bigger idea of, the bigger picture. This is how you apply blueprint to an entire game, not just an abstract example. And then we'll have time for questions. Again, I might run out of time, so we'll see how it goes. So first of all, my name is actually Sjurtejong. I'm also known as Haurenses, and I've been doing this for a while. So I started with Unreal Engine in 1999, so that's about 15 years ago. So I've been working with Unreal for 15 years now. I worked on 7 finished commercially released Unreal Engine games. I've gone through 4 generations of the engine. So this is Unreal Engine 4. I started on Unreal Engine 1. I've gone through all 4 of them. I've worked with Unreal Engine 4 for a year now. So I've been doing this for a year. Got quite a good view on the engine. And for your information, I'm originally a level designer and a level artist, environment artist, those kind of things. Okay, so I'm not a programmer. I'm a level designer in the first place. Secondly, an environment artist, and then perhaps a technical environment artist or so. Okay, so I have a designer and artist background, and that's also the reason why I really love Unreal, why I went with Unreal all the way back in 1999, and why I still use it nowadays. It's because Unreal is very visual. It really empowers the designer and the artist, and that's exactly what Blueprint is all about. So I'll get back to that later on. Anyhow, I worked on about 100 levels, more than 100 levels minimum for Unreal Engine games. And my website, haurenses.com, I'll show you the link later on, it's also at the bottom there, has been running up and running for about 10 years, and I got about 1.8 million visitors to it by now. Okay. I do videos, I wrote books, I do all kinds of stuff. Okay. I also have my own company here in Sweden. So I moved to Sweden 6 years ago to work for Starbreeze originally. Then I left Starbreeze and I started up my own company, which is Theodol Studios. I made the ball. The ball is my brainchild. I did a lot of work on that, the original design, a lot of the levels, a lot of the arts, a lot of the visual, the art direction, everything. So we did the ball, released in 2010, if I remember right, and then we did our mechanical as well. Both Unreal Engine games, of course. So that's what we did with my own company. I worked for over 19 clients and employers over the years, so that's a small selection of them. So what I do is I do about 30% my own games of the week. 30% of the time I work as consultant for companies, and 30% of the time I work for Future Games here in Stockholm as one of the main people responsible for the education. So I'm responsible for the game design class of Future Games, and I also do the industry contact, the internship process, those kind of things. So I split up my time about 30, 30, 30, or 33, 33, etc. a week between those 3 things. Right. So that was about me. Then I'll show you the video of the game, or not really. It's more of a teaser. There's no gameplay in it, but it sets the mood. And hold on, I should have sound. Okay, so that was, as I said, two and a half people. I don't know what I said in the beginning, actually, of my own video, but something like 2 or 3 people for 2.5 months or so part-time. So this was just more like a, a mood video or something. It's more of a teaser. We have gameplay as well. I'll show you that later on briefly, because I have just 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to focus mostly on the engine, but I'll use the game as example. Okay? But everything that you saw here, there's a lot of blueprint involved, for example. The whole sky, the way the sky blends between different weather types, the way meteors come down, get spawned, hit things, it's all scripted in Blueprint. So again, Blueprint isn't just a scripting language, it also really has an impact for artists. So I'll briefly talk a bit about the game before moving on to the engine. It's a few minutes. Solus is a survival game. It's an exploration and survival game, in fact. It's FPS. It's Unreal Engine 4, of course. And the backstory goes that the Earth is on the brink of destruction. They know something terrible is going to happen. Nothing has happened to Earth yet, but they know that in about 100 years or so from now, quite a long period of time, Earth will be destroyed. So mankind starts to look for a place to go. And they've detected a number of planets in nearby solar systems. We're doing this today even. We know that there might be a planet in this solar system or this one that might have water, that might have oxygen, the right temperature, etc. So mankind detected a number of planets that seems to be suitable for life. They built a number of large rocket ships, spaceships, and they sent one spaceship to each of those planets to try to find a place for people to go to. That's the story. Okay. So mankind has never been to those planets yet. They've never taken pictures of it. They've just detected that it seems to be suitable for life. And also it's quite low-tech sci-fi, so there's no warp space or, going really fast or anything. It's very slow, actually. So it takes about 20 years to go from Earth to one of these planets. As a player, you're on one of these ships. The ship arrives at the planet. Something goes wrong. We don't know what, but something goes wrong. So the ship crash lands on the planet, and you're the only survivor. So the game is all about being alone. Solus is Latin for being alone. And I try to overdo it a little bit. I try to overdo most things. So you're on an island, on an alien planet, 20 travel years away from Earth. Earth is on the brink of destruction. Everyone on your ship is dead, and there seems to be absolutely no life on the planet, just to make sure people are alone. Okay? So it's very depressive in a way. At the same time, I want to have this double feeling where it's very depressive. I mean, you don't really want to be in this situation, but at the same time, there is something to the planet that makes it very beautiful and captivating. I want this double feeling. You don't want to be there, and you do want to be there. It's kind of, if you want to compare it, it's a bit like Lost, the TV series in a way. It has this double feeling as well. They really played it out well in that series. So the game is mostly about exploring, scavenging, and surviving. I have a fully built out weather system. There is temperature control, so you actually have to look at the temperature of the world. I have a wind system. I have humidity. It all impacts the way you are. You have to sleep. You have to find food, those kind of things. It's an archipelago world, so it's a lot of islands in a sea. You're on one of those islands, and you have to try to get to the next island, and then the next island, etc. So you can freely explore each island, but to go from island to island, you have to go underground through an extensive cave system. So this is a bit what, people playing Minecraft, what I did a lot when I was playing Minecraft, I just turned off the enemies, and I just walk around through the world, and I try to find really big cave systems, and I try to walk through those cave systems to see where they go to, because I want to see where does it lead to, what can I discover? And it's kind of the same idea here. Okay, so that's the game briefly. And then I probably should start showing the engine, because that's probably why you're here, right? So, okay, so here we have Unreal Engine 4. So this is the editor. How many people actually worked with Unreal Engine 3 here? Can you raise hands? Okay, it's about half-ish, I guess. So it's about similar, actually, to Unreal Engine 3. If you've worked with Unreal Engine 3 before, you'll be at home in this very fast. Okay, the interface looks different. Obviously, it's dark. The buttons moved, new buttons, etc. But the same functionality is all there. It just moved places. And of course, we have a lot of new parts to it as well. We have an outliner here now, etc. But again, when I started with Unreal Engine 4, I was up and running in just a few days' time. Excluding the advanced parts, excluding Blueprint, but just the basics, it went really fast to adapt to this. So I built a basic level here. I'm going to use this first, and later on I'll open up my game. And as said, what I want to do is I want to build a lightning strike, like you saw in the video, so the lightning comes down. Yeah, there's some questions? Oh yeah, I think that's indeed a problem. I should just do that. It's there's something wrong with the audio indeed. If the editor runs, you get weird noise for some reason. Yeah, so I want to have a lightning strike, like we saw in the video. Okay, and I want to do that not with a particle or so. Well, it is a particle underneath, but it's handled by script. And once I have one lightning strike, I want to build a second script that manages the first one, so that spawns it basically. And then after that, I want to go to third step and have the level control when the lightning should start. So it's 3 steps. Okay, it's a very simple script. I'm going to go through it relatively fast. I mean, probably too fast for you, but it's more of a demonstration of how it works. Okay, so briefly, for people who have worked with Kismet before, what Kismet used to be in Unreal Engine 3, you know, Kismet is a visual scripting editor of Unreal Engine 3. You had a level Kismet, and that was it. You still got a level Kismet. It's now called Level Blueprint, and it looks like this. But you don't really use it that much anymore. One of the big benefits of Blueprints over Kismet is that you can actually, it's an asset. You can place it in the content browser. This is the content browser. This is where all your assets are. See, these are all the textures and materials, you know. You can place it in the content browser as a separate individual thing, and then you can just place it around in the world. So it's much smoother to work with, really. So I have made a folder here. I'll add a new blueprint to it. Then you can base it on a certain parent class. So I'll just take actor, which is a standard one, doesn't really do anything. And I'll call it lightning strike or something. I'll open that up, and then you get this. So you got these 3 tabs here, or 3 windows. First of all, you have the defaults, which is just default values, but the most important ones are the graph and the components. So you got a component editor where you can add things to it. Okay, so if I add a static mesh to it, I will add a modal to it. So it's an object, and you can add blocks to it. So what I have to do here is I have to add a lightning strike to it, a particle of lightning going down. Okay, so I'll go back to the content browser and find that first. There's 2 of them actually I need. One of them is the actual strike, and the other one is a particle of smoke where it hits. So when it hits, there should be this like blam, you know, this particle flash. So I've got 2 of them. This is the actual strike, I believe. So I selected that. Now it shows up in here. I add that, and you can see it's really big, so let me zoom out a bit. And if I recompile, Blueprint should be compiled different from Kismet. Then you can see it strikes, okay? Second one is the hit itself. I'll add, whoops, wrong one. I'll add that as well. And now I get that. The timing is off. It happens too soon, but you get the idea. I'll fix that later. We should name them probably. Makes it a bit easier later on. Call this a strike, and this is the hit. To do a little bit cleaner, actually, you can see this is the root, so I'm not going to make it a root. I'll just add a sprite icon to be the root instead. It's a bit cleaner instead of having that, and I'll... Now that one is the root instead. That's fine. So if I add this to the world, I will have a very basic lightning strike. It's not very good. I mean, it's not very pretty, but it works. So I add that here, and I'll make the sunlight a bit darker for a moment, otherwise you can't really see this. So this is the light I selected. Okay, just so you can see things. And you can see, well, I fell down and then I get blood and such, but you saw the lightning strike, yeah? So it works, but it's only once and then it's gone, etc. So that's not very good. First of all, I should fix the fact that the smoke starts before the lightning strike hits the actual ground. That's not very good. Secondly, I want to have a flash there. I mean, there should be a flash of light, not just a particle, actually an actual light that expands, that fades in and then disappears again. And there should be a sound. Now, I don't have sound here, but I'll set up the sound anyway. Okay? Those 3 things I should have first. So there's multiple ways of doing this. I'm going to use several different ways. First of all, for the sound, I get myself a sound cue. For those of you who have worked with Unreal Engine 3, it's identical. You can open it up if you want. I mean, it has the same kind of graphical editor, but it really is almost identical. You got a couple of new things here, new functionality, but it's about the same. Either way, that's the sound. I can add the sound as a component as well. It says audio somewhere there. There we go. So this would now play the sound. Again, you can't hear it, but this will play a lightning sound. And then the problem is this one starts too soon. So what I can do now is at the bottom here, it says auto activate. I'll turn it off and I'll manually turn it on after a few seconds, not really a few seconds, after 300 milliseconds actually. Okay, so how do I manually turn this on after 300 milliseconds, which is the time it takes to go from the top to the bottom with a lightning strike? I use the graph editor. And this is where you do most of the work. This is the part where you do the actual visual scripting. Okay, I'll just add some random things so you get the idea. See, it's kind of like Kismet in a way, although at the same time it's entirely different. You know, obviously it's obviously a visual scripting editor, so that's similar, right? And it's still Unreal, but there have been so many changes to this that if you know Kismet, you pretty much have to start over if you want to learn this. It's still kind of the same logic, but there are really so very many differences. And this is 1,000,000 times more powerful than Kismet. It's incredible. Okay, so what I shall do is I'll make the flash at the bottom appear a little bit later. So new event, on begin play, when the thing begins, we have a delay. I can just do a delay like this. There's a 0.3, which is the time it takes, delay, and then all the variables you make automatically appear on the left in the variable list. So you can see these variables match the ones I have in there. And in fact, I can make my own new variable, which I'll do later on. But here you can see this is the hit. So I can drag that in, get it, and this now corresponds to the particle. So then I can drag from here and say you should activate the thing. And then I would activate it. Everything here is context sensitive. So again, if you work with Kismet, for example, I have a lot of Kismet references because I come from that background myself. But if you right-click in Kismet, the right-click menu in Kismet, it shows every possible thing you can add, right? It's the complete list of everything you could possibly add. But this doesn't. This is context sensitive. There's a list on the right here. That's somewhat the complete list. It's not even entirely complete, I believe, to my experience. But if you right-click, it's context sensitive. It only shows what's currently possible. And in fact, if I drag from this and let go, I get a different menu, see, that only shows the things possible to do on this specific type of object, which makes the scripting a bit easier because you don't have to go through this huge list of stuff and then figure out like, oh, would this possibly work with this thing? Oh, let's try that. No, that doesn't work. You know, that's going to take time. So it's context sensitive. It kind of helps you. It guides you in what you can use and what you can't use. So I'll do that. And if I play this, the strike at the bottom will appear slightly later. I can quickly do it, but I don't think you will really see it because, yeah, well, it's very subtle, but it works. However, then there is the next thing. And the next thing is I want to have a light in there that fades in and then fades out again. Now, what I could do is I could go back to the components and just add myself a point light in here. It could do that. We can also do it entirely different. I can also just spawn the light during the game. So I can do add component, add a point light component during the game, like that. So now I got a light in there. And then, because it's going to spawn that light where the actor is located, and the actor is located there, so you can see it's actually on level with the ground. I don't want to have a light that's half submerged in the ground, right? That wouldn't be very great. I want the light to be a little bit above the ground. So I will say your transform here. I can make a transform. In the transform, I can type the location, rotation, scale. It should be 1,000 units above the ground. Otherwise, it's half in the ground, doesn't work, etc. Then we need to get this to fade. So if I were to play this right now, you can see you can set the brightness here, so I can make it really bright for a moment so it's obvious. And I can set a really large radius, and then play. You know, then it spawned the light, and then that's it. The light is there, but it doesn't do anything. So I need to get that light to fade. And what you can do then is, because this is the light it creates. So first of all, let me make a variable out of the thing it creates so I can easily access the light later on. If I make a new variable in the list on the left, and I call that spawn light or whatever, then by default it's a bool. You can see it's actually a bool type is red. Shouldn't be red, it should be bluish. I can change the type of variable here, and I'm looking for a point light component because it's a component and it's a point light. So now it's the right type. I can drag it in here. Oh, sorry, shouldn't be getting it. I should first set it. I can't use it. I can't use it like this because it's empty. So first set it. Sets. So when you spawn it, then this becomes this variable. There we go. And then I want to animate the brightness on this. So I get it again, and then I get here brightness, and I can do set brightness. And in the same way, I can do set radius. So let me copy that. Right, set radius. Now I got those two, but it's just a single number. I don't just want to set the number, because then the light will just suddenly change. That wouldn't be good. I want to fade it. So what I will add to fade it is a timeline. Okay. And a timeline is kind of like what Matinee was in Unreal Engine 3, for those of you familiar with that. So Matinee is a cutscene editor of Unreal Engine 3. It's still here. There's still Matinee in here. But Matinee in Unreal Engine 4 is more used for cinematics. Not necessarily, but it got a bit more towards that direction. And we got this new thing here instead called a timeline, which is more useful in Blueprint to do all kinds of simple things like this. It just animates variables. That's all it does. It animates a float. It animates a vector. It's just a curve editor. Okay. So when you've spawned that, you will start playing this one. And as you play that one, you will have to update this one. The update output means it will update it all the time. So it's completely smooth, which is a very nice addition compared to Matinee and Unreal Engine 3. Then the next problem is I have to do something with this. Okay, so what I will do is I will add something called lerp here, linear interpolate, that just blends between A and B dependent on alpha. I'll have two of those. There are other ways of doing this, like most things in scripting and everything else. You know, there's so many different ways of doing it, but this works. This is how I do it. And then I can say you should go from 0 to brightness 32, so it's really bright, and the radius goes from 0 to 8,192 or so. Could have been 8,000. I just have this fitism with power of 2. But and then I need to animate it, so I'm going to connect the alpha here to the timeline. If I double-click the timeline, I get the timeline editor. I can add a flow track to it. I can name it if I want to, but I don't want to, so there we go. You add points to the curve, and you said this one is at 0 and value 0, and you can see the time here, so I'll make it 2 seconds long instead, and the second point goes to on 2 seconds, value 1. Okay, so it's a simple 0 to 1 curve over a length of 2 seconds. There's that, and then this connects there, and that's it. This will fade in. I can try that. And actually, because it's easy to see if there's a slight delay, let me add another delay to it over here. Or no, sorry, then I have to change too many other things. Let me just try like this. So it's quick and easy. Oh yeah, so it fades in, but it doesn't fade out. So I'll change the curve here for a moment. Add a point. I mean, let's just say it's like more like this. Very quick fade in. And then it slowly fades out. Make sure this is 1. So yeah, it fades in and out. So if animated the light, that's that. Then I should have, as next step, I should have a management script that spawns a lot of these, not just this one single one. I need something that spawns lightning for me. That's what you saw in the sky. So this one is done. I'll save that thing. I'll go back here. I'll do a new lightning strike. Or a new blueprint based on actor again. Call it lightning manager or something. This one shouldn't really do much here. It just manages the other one. So all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to add a sprite to it. Just have an icon. So I can place it in the world and so I know where it's located. So I'll just call that icon. That's it. And then we go to the graph. Okay. And here is kind of the same. I'll do add event. Say on begin play. I'm probably going to change this later on. But this is one quick way to begin. On begin play, there is a delay of say, I don't know, 1 second or something. And then it spawns this one. So I'll do spawn actor, and I take the blueprint I have selected over here, which is the lightning strike blueprint. Okay, and then I can do this, so it actually just loops around, so it keeps spawning them every second. We get a new one and a new one and a new one, etc. I'll check that just for safety. Still not going to work though, because it doesn't know where to spawn it, which isn't very good. The spawn transform is empty. So this wouldn't work. I can try compiling it, and then I get, compile failed. It has no. You can click it here, and it automatically, if you have a big script, it will automatically take you there. So I need to make a transform here. However, I need to have a random transform. I don't just want a specific point. I want a random point within a certain area. That's what I want. So, okay, I got the same thing here that we had before, make transform. Then I want this one to be random. So what I can do then is I can make a vector as well. So now I broke it up basically in floats, right? And for example, again, for people coming from Unreal Engine 3, one difference here is that these kind of things you used to do within the chain in Unreal Engine 3. Here it's separate, so it's almost two different arms it makes. All the calculations are a different arm. The execution wire never goes to one of those. This just executes by itself, in a way. So okay, so I've got X and Y. I need to randomize both of those, so I can do random floating range here, which will get me a random number between a minimum and a maximum. I'll get a second one for Y. And I believe from experience, I think it was minus 32,000 and minus 28,000 is a nice location, so let's try that. And minus 4,096 and 4,096, something like that. I mean, it's just to define an area. In fact, you can even set up things in such a way that you can define this area in the viewport and actually drag like boundaries around you. You can actually set it in the viewport instead of typing numbers as well. But I'll keep it simple. This should do, I believe. And I believe, if I'm right, that coordinate I just entered is supposed to be there on the edge. So let's try that, if that works. I forgot if I added it or not. No, I didn't add it to the world yet, I think. And let me delete the other one. The individual strike shouldn't be here anymore. Okay. See if I might have forgotten something, but... So it keeps having the lightning hit, see, and it's a kind of random location, but the box I defined in the numbers there is quite small, so it's really only the area in front of me. But it randomly spawns lightning on random positions. So we got that working. Still not really ideal though, because for example, if I do the following, it wouldn't work anymore. Let's say I add a mesh there. Let's say there's a rock, because the landscape probably isn't a flat floor. There's probably stuff on it, and we wouldn't want the lightning to go through the things we have on there. So let me add a rock to it, and then you can see what it does with that. I'll make it really big. It's not very pretty, I mean, it's a black rock, but let's just have a bit of a floor there. No, the lightning just goes through. Yeah, now you have the glass overlay. But as you can see, there is no light appearing on the rock or anything. It just goes straight through, even while it's a black rock. But so what we need to do is we need to make sure that the script understands where the ground is. We need to have it detect the ground and then have the lightning go until where the ground is, not just until a fixed location. And I'll set this one to 0.5 for a minute, so it's not actually black, the rock. So go back to the manager here, the spawning thing. And what I will do then is I will add a trace. So I'm going to trace a position downwards, and where the trace hits geometry, that's the location where the lightning should go to. So I'll add a single line trace by, I think, channel, if I'm right. Yeah, channel is correct. I'll disconnect this for a moment so I can, so it's a bit easier. Actually, I'll connect that one as well. I'll just take it apart for a moment, add this in between. So before it spawns lightning, it should first check where to exactly spawn, what height to spawn it at. So I have a trace there. And the trace is going to use the same setup I have here, so the same random point within a certain area. This is the end point, and the start point is some point way above it. So I'll do plus 8,000 or whatever, or 8,192 if I wish, which is the start. I'll give it a bit more space. I'll do like that. And then where it hits, so it's the out hit, we'll break that apart. So where it hits, I can see the location now. That location is where you spawn that one. I could have done that, but I prefer to use make transform, so I'll do this. And then I have that. So let's try how it works. I don't have to recompile, by the way. Every time I play the game, it automatically recompiles the script, so kind of easy. And you can see it hit the top of the rock. So it now detects the ground as well. And I took away the loop, so it only happens once, but you can see that works. I'm going to do a loop in a slightly different way for a moment. So let me quickly restore this, but in a slightly different way. I have a tick event nowadays as well. And by doing this, I don't have to drag a line back, I believe. Let me try if that works, just verifying. Yeah, so now it loops again in a different way. It's a bit more flexible. Then what I can do is, because I don't want lightning all the time, I want the level to control when the lightning should start, or whatever else, but something else should control when the lightning starts. So the manager should be controlled by something else in turn. So what I will add here in between, and also I want to be able to control how long the delay is. Maybe I want less lightning or more lightning or whatever. So I'll make two variables. One of them is called delay. The other one is called enabled, so I can turn it off. Okay, the enabled one is a bool, that's correct. The delay should be a float, because it should just be that. I can get that here. I can connect that to this one, so now it uses this instead. If you compile it once, the default value shows up over here, so I'll say it's default 1 second delay, and then I have enabled. I'll add that as well, get. I'll add a branch in between, which is nothing more but a compare bool, and if true, you execute. So if this is false, then it wouldn't do anything, the signal would just stop. So now I have that. Then I want to be able to make sure that I can change these two in the level. Okay, because right now I can't. If I click now I have the lightning manager selected, you can see here in the properties, it's not here. I can't change enabled, I can't disable it. So I will click on enabled. Actually, I don't even have to click on it. There's these two little icons on the right of it. If I click both of those, it gets exposed to the properties. So now you can see here it says delay and here it says enabled. And actually, enabled is by default off. I should probably just enable that for a moment by default. That's it. And now I can say in the level, okay, your delay shouldn't be 1 second, it should be 0.1, for example. And I have a whole lot of lightning. Okay. So there's that. And then there's one last step that I want to do with this basic setup before I show the rest of the game is, as said, I want the level to control when this happens. So what I'll do here is I'll set it back to 1 second delay. I'll turn off enabled in the properties, and then I go to the level blueprint, which is going to control the management script. So what I'll do here is I have a certain event, and I'll just take numpad 0 or something, just a key on the keyboard to control it for a moment. I have the manager selected in here. I add a reference to that. Now the manager shows up in here. Because this is the level blueprint, you don't have to actually add the variables to the list on the left. It just automatically takes whatever is available in the level, and that actor is in the level. And then I can say from this one, enabled should be set, and it should now be enabled. So now I can actually just play, press numpad 0. So there's no lightning now, I press numpad 0, and then I will get lightning. Okay. And one last thing to finish it up is when the lightning begins, I want the sunlight to get darker. Because the clouds move in, it gets darker. So before the lightning starts, it should first get darker. So I select my sunlight here, directional light. I'll put it to brightness 4. So it's a bright sunny day. I'll add that light to the level blueprint as well. And this is the same as we've done in the beginning, so it's nice to go back to where we started. Set brightness, have a lerp from this. This should be moved to the end of it. It should first execute a timeline, so we have a timeline in here as well. On press it, plays that. Add a flow track. Let's say it takes 5 seconds and need 2 points. So it takes 5 seconds to go from 0 to 1. On update, it does that, that goes there, and That's currently 4, so I'll go from 4 to 0.25 or something. And when finished, on finished, set it enabled. That's it. So nothing happens. I press numpad 0. That will start fading out. Goes slow, but I mean it gets darker because the lightning moves in, and then the lightning starts. So now I set up a basic script. So this gives you the overview on what Blueprint is and how it works. I mean, it's a very simple thing, what I just did, but it gives you kind of a view on how it works. So now I can show you how my game actually works and how this impacts my whole game. So if I open up, I'll open up my main level here. I'll very quickly play just 1 minute just to get a very rough idea of what happens in it. It's standard FPS, not that specific. I mean, that's different from a normal FPS, but I got this very large level here. I get the sky in there. Let me play from here. You can see the sky automatically. I have real-time day and night as mentioned, so I've currently froze the time at this specific time of day because I think this looks prettiest. But if I were to press play, or I mean change the settings, it would just real-time update everything. Either way, this is my planet, standard FPS. I got this PDA I'm holding. It shows the temperature of the world. It's currently 35 degrees. It's 18 degrees humidity, 2.2 meters a second wind. If I move in the shadows, it gets 21 degrees, so it's colder in the shadows, etc. I have items, I can pick them up. It's currently hard to see where they are. I'm working on that, and for some reason my crosshair disappeared, which makes it kind of hard. Yeah, so you can pick things up. You can do crafting as well. You have an inventory system. You can combine these different items together, for example. I can do that. Now I broke the can open, and then you can eat the can and so on. So I have a lot of things going. I went really far with it. And the thing is that all you're seeing right now, I haven't touched a single line of code. And sure, it's just FPS, but I haven't touched a single line of code. That's the thing. That's just how powerful Blueprint is. I'm not a programmer. I mean, I never was able to do this kind of stuff, because doing this kind of stuff in other engines or even in Unreal Engine 3 would require me to program, and I can't program. But this allows me to do so much. I've never felt this empowered by an engine until now. I can do all these things that I've never been able to do. That's really cool. And I went to such great lengths. I mean, everything. The flowers close during the night. As said, if you stand in the shadow, it's actually colder. If you stand behind a rock, there's less wind because the wind is broken by the rock. The tide, there's a tide that goes up and down. The sand on the beach actually goes wet when the water retreats, you know, everything. If you go underneath, I change the distance fog and I move all kinds of particles in. There's so many things I do. I have tornadoes, I have meteors, I have all kinds of disasters. All of it is pure Blueprint. I have a crafting system, pure Blueprint. I have ladder physics. I mean, just climbing a ladder, I can swim, I can drown. The controls of the FPS player, I haven't touched a line of code. And that's awesome. And I'm not saying what I did is the best way to go, because I can show you why. It's not really, but it does illustrate the power of the system. So I can open up some of the stuff. This is the sky. So the entire sky is a single object. Okay? The entire sky is a single blueprint. And here in the components you can see it. So it adds everything. It adds the fog to it. It adds the planets. It adds a cloud layer. So there's one mesh here in the middle. That's the clouds you're seeing above you. And beyond the clouds, I got an actual, you know, the actual sky dome. This goes blue during the day, and during the night you can see stars. This is like, I don't know, 1 million units across or more. It's actual real life size almost. So this planet is like 400,000 units big. A player, for your information, is like 200 units. Okay, so it's really massive. And the whole thing is one object. So any level I make now, I can just place this thing in there, and instantly I got my real-time weather system, day and night system, everything else. And it's all scripted together in here. Got a little bit out of hand. Okay. And again, what I'm doing is not necessarily the cleanest, okay? Because I'm approaching this from an aspect, you know, from a point where I'm an artist, I'm a designer, I can't program. And the programming, by the way, is done in C++. I can't do that stuff. So I have to find solutions that work for me, meaning I do this. If you work in a big company, you probably want to have a programmer help you out with some of this and automate some of this, clean it up a bit, you know, make it a bit more compressed. But given my situation, this is what I end up with, but it works. And it actually runs really fast, because it's not like most visual script editors that are quite slow. Kismet actually in Unreal Engine 3 was quite slow. Executing Kismet code is a lot slower than executing C++ in Unreal Engine 3. But this executes quite fast. Of course, it can never beat C++. You know, it can never beat that, because I mean, there's no way it can do that. But it's really fast. It's very efficient to run all this. And you can see what I kind of did. I can talk you through it. You know, it starts somewhere, so let's just start. Then I split up the signal, because I need to have many different signals. It's a difference from Kismet, by the way. You can't actually have multiple. I can't do this. See, there can only be one line from each node. Anyhow, I split it up, etc. Eventually, I get to a timeline. So I have one timeline that controls one day itself, really, and I have a second timeline that controls a moon day, which is 1.5 days. So the moon is slower. And that does nothing more than a simple 0 to 1 curve. So everything I just shown with the lightning, the whole sky, is a billion times that. And it's not very advanced. It just looks very big, but it's actually very simple stuff, what I've done here. Because all of it is nothing more but set something, use a lerp, you use a number here to change it. Set something, use a lerp, blend between two colors. And I just did that a million times over. Okay? And then you get that. Again, could have been more optimized, but it works. And that's the sky. I can show you the player. So the thing is that these blueprints, it's not just for level stuff, you know. It's not just for, oh, I want to do something in the level, I want to make a door, I'll make a blueprint door. You can also use that for the player. You can use it for the camera. You can use it for the HUD. You can use it for the game type. You can do every single type of actor can become a blueprint. So this is the player itself. So the actual player is a blueprint that runs. And while that blueprint runs, this is what it executes, being the player. So even the player is a blueprint, and even all of this stuff is done in blueprint. I have components there. I can zoom in on it, it's kind of far away. So this is the player. I don't have an actual player model, it's first person, but you can see the capsule. This is the collision of the player. This is the camera. So even the camera is just an object in here. If I move this, I move the camera perspective. You know, the sound, and this is the hand. It's invisible in game, but it's the hand that picks up items, etc. And then I have a lot of stuff in here. You know, so this is what happens when you left click. And then it has to go through lots and lots of checks. You know, are you in a cutscene? Are you currently swimming? Are you currently holding something? Are you currently looking at something that could be eaten, etc.? So a lot of different checks here. And then depending on what happens, it might grab the item, it adds it to the inventory. The inventory is a macro or a function. So you have macros and functions also that split up the functionality in separate blocks. So you can basically make your own blocks. You can make this one, for example, yourself. You know, and then reuse that block through. You know, and if it picks it up, then eventually it sets the actor rotation to a certain point, it attaches it. You know, then it communicates to the item that it should be set, that it should set itself to hidden. I do a couple of security check here, etc. You know, but this is how I go through it. This is switching items using the scroll wheel. This is merging items. This is eating the item or consuming it in some other way. You can have chalk leaving marks behind on the ground. I have a flashlight, which is not entirely done, but still drop item. This is where the item sends information back to the player, so the player knows what it's dealing with. See, so the player knows what the item gives as a temperature offset. This is when you actually look at it. So this is the crosshair looking at objects and detecting the objects and then figuring out what to do given a certain case. So I think the top arm is when it looks at an actual object. The middle arm is when it looks at nothing, and the bottom arm is when it looks at a static object, etc. You know, and I went on and on and on like that, so it got a bit out of hand. I managed to do respawning and death and damage here. So I managed to check if you're indoor or not. I'm checking for falling damage. I leave footsteps behind, so even the footsteps you leave behind has been done in here. You know, I go in climbing mode. This is a basic checkpoint system. Local rain, so if it starts to rain, what I actually do, for example, is rather than spawning actual rain in the entire level, it would be rather heavy. I've attached a rain particle to the player. Where is it? Local rain, which is off by default, but if I were to enable this, so when the rain starts, he simply toggles the particle on, and then it rains near the player, which is just a local rain cloud, which happens to follow the player. So that's how it will rain. But I mean, it's a lot of simple hacks, and it works, because now you've got a rainstorm following you without having to do, without that it's very performance heavy. You know, and we got even more of that. This is the pocket computer that you're holding. You can see here it is. So this is the thing, it spawns on the player. It's a mesh and has a lot of text label, and I set those text labels during the game based on the information that it gathers from the environment and that it gets from the player. So this is all just setting the visuals of the PDA depending on what it does. You know, and I can go on and on and on like this. The point is, I overdid this. This is a bit too much. You shouldn't be building your entire game in this almost. It's not really the intention. But at the same time, it does show just how powerful it is. Sure, it's a little bit over the top, but if you would want to, you could do this. You can actually do this. And that's amazing, I think. Because for the first time in years, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and in the first time in 15 years, I can build my own game. That's awesome. So that's why I really love Unreal. And Unreal has had that thing since the very beginning, you know, where it's very artist and designer focused. It empowers artists and designers. This is not meant to replace C++ or programmers, but it's meant to empower artists and designers, and it does that. Okay? So the programmers can focus their time on more complex things or more, you know, higher level stuff, and so the designers can help out with things, and the designers can prototype things. So what happens, for example, with this, we took in a programmer now, and he's going to go through this, and he's going to start saying, okay, well, you got this whole thing, it looks a bit of a mess. I'll make a C++ function that does this in C++. And then I get a new block. For example, let's just say that he made this. Well, that's a delay. Let's take something better. Let's say he made this, and then I get a simple block like this, say, that does all of this in C++. That's how it would work for the next step, okay? So first of all, I do it by hand in Blueprint, but eventually a programmer would start making blocks, and then I start connecting those blocks in here. So I still have control, but it doesn't have to go out of hand like this. Let's see if there's any other nice one. The item, for example. You know, this is the items you pick up. It's fairly simple over here. It's a simple mesh here. It changes the mesh depending on what it is, because you can change the type here, and if you change the type, it automatically changes all the stats and the models and other things. And you can see the graph here looks like this. So this is everything it does on an item. It needs to know what fits together, what to do when it's picked up, what to do when it's, you know, when you look at it, when to show the outline, currently not active, but we'll be back soon, when it should respawn, etc. There's also two other things I want to mention here. This is the game. I mean, all the things you just saw, that has an impact on the game, but it also impacts the way you build levels. Because if I look at the plans I have, for example, over here, I didn't actually place these plans. I wrote a script that placed the plans for me. So I can actually also write editor scripts that place stuff for you using a visual editor. So this thing here, if I move it, you're going to see it randomly picks another plant model, and the plants go on top of geometry. So it detects the top of things, not always a collision on this one is wrong, but I mean, you can see it goes up and down following the geometry. And I have properties here, so I can say, well, I want, it's saving, auto-saving. But I'm going to change I want 40 plants instead of 6, so I can change the number of those. Now I have 40 plants following the ground, etc. And this thing is just a simple, fairly simple script. It looks a bit big, but it's not that much that it does. The event graph in this case is empty. It's just a construction script. Construction script is what it executes in the beginning, and this is what it does. This is random scale, random rotation, random different mesh model, random location, and some other stuff. That's it. You got a basic script. And one last thing I want to highlight in the same direction. I got a really big cave here underneath. So as I said, there's a lot of caving in the game. And somewhere in this cave, I think it's a shortcut. There's this cave where the water rises. So the water goes up and down depending on the tide outside. And the rocks are green, because I want to illustrate to the player, you should be careful in this area, you know, the water might rise. What you would have done in Unreal Engine 3 or in other engines is you would have made a new material for this location with this kind of rock, right? I didn't do that. What I did is I made a blueprint that does it for me. Wait, I locked the level. Wait. It's a sub-level, and I think it's locked. There we go. This is an actual blueprint. You can copy that. You can move it up. And you can see what happens. Now it's a normal rock. If it goes below a certain point, it automatically becomes green. Okay? I want to have another rock somewhere else in the level that operates at a different height. I can just change the location here. I can say, well, it should be 4,000. And you can see now this one fades to normal rock higher than the previous one. So it's very simple stuff, but it does impact the way you work because you don't have to go make material copies, a million material copies all over, just to be able to change those kind of things. You can just very quickly script it, and this is a very basic script for your information, and then start using that in the level. So this is the rock in use here. All it does is this. This is it. This is the entire script. So it's very simple to do, but it impacts your workflow as a level designer a lot, I think. I'm probably running out of time, am I? Someone? Well, probably am because I started at 30 about, so I should probably start taking questions, I guess. Anyone, any questions? I think they have a microphone they want to give to people. So hold on.
All right, so what about debugging? If you want to debug something, is it complicated or is it easy?
It's pretty nice, actually. I mean, I don't know what you expect, what's nice is for you, but I quite enjoy it. For example, I can very quickly show you that. Let me open up the player, and I want to debug the player. It's the easiest thing to do because the player is always there. So I have the player here. I start the game. Starting this level sometimes takes a while. It's a lot of things to initiate. Then I have this debug option here, so I'll select the player. Yeah, you can see it's raining now because I enabled it, I think, or maybe it's disabled it. But you can now see in real time what it's doing in the game. You can see this is continuously updating, and you can see every arm goes through. Most of the arms are stopped, so clearly you're not respawning. So this is stopped here by player has not died, you know. So you can in real time see what it's doing, and you can in real time also look at the values of things. Let me take something obvious here. For example, this is the crosshair, so you can actually see what it's, let me get one that's obvious. You know, you can see the value of variables during the game as well, which is very nice. You can see that the item in view is none, which is correct, I have nothing in view. So you can actually see all the values in game, and you can also watch it, and then it pops up above it, so it's even easier to see it. You can also set, add a breakpoint, and then it will stop there. So I think debugging-wise, it's quite easy. When something breaks, it's quite doable, I think, to find the problem. So, okay. Any other question?
Does it have vertex snapping?
Not really. Not at this point. But I mean, the engine is still under development. Okay, so.
I had a question from, I mean, I've been using UDK 3, Unreal Engine 3, sorry, for a while, and it's pretty nice seeing all this stuff. Do you have any information about when I'm going to be able to use Unreal Engine 4?
I can't answer any questions like release date, platforms, those kind of things. So.
Yeah, you said that it was possible to make the blocks from C++ code. Is all blocks basically C++ code, or are there's so you can enter any block now and look at it? Can you enter any block and look at it as C++ code too? Is this possible?
Yes and no. All the blocks you see are C++. So there is no more Unreal script or anything like that. It's C++, Blueprint, that's it. Okay? And you can write things in C++ yourself, obviously. You can write the blocks yourself. But the blocks you see right now, the standard blocks, I don't believe you can see a lot of them in detail, no. Because, I mean, if you want to see that, you need to get the source code of the engine to see most of it. And, you know, that costs more money. For example, if with UDK, you can't see the C++ source of UDK either. You know, so it's the same kind of deal. But you can always write them yourself, or if the community starts sharing things with each other, of course, you can look at the script from other people and adjust it, yes.
Are there any tools in the blueprint that allows you to optimize more than you could in UDK3? Like any sort of culling options or other functions.
You mean culling visually?
Yeah,
I mean,
for example, but other optimization tools as well, like.
It's not really meant to start messing with the way the scenes are rendered, no. You can do some of it. I mean, you can, of course, color it, affect the way. You can hide items manually if you set up a certain script, but it's not really the intention, no. That goes a bit far. So, any other questions behind you?
Did they change the gizmo? Is the gizmo different than it used to be in Unreal, in UDK, in Unreal 3?
With Gizmo, you mean the arrows, that?
Yeah,
or?
and the whole navigation in the viewport.
No, it's identical, actually.
It's identical, okay.
Anything else? Now's your chance. No. Okay, well, then I guess I'm done and out of time. Or?
Yeah, like, if time over, come to show a bit more of the game.
Well, I'm out of time, and the game is kind of slow to play. Because it's a survival game, so I mean, it takes a while to die. If you want, I can quickly speed up the sky, just for the fun of that. Oops. Because I have a setting here that says speed and start, and I'll do that. Or actually, let me set random weather as well. Oh, that was a bad idea. I don't know what it did. It's not really normal. I never had this where it actually stopped. Oh, I have that one there. Let me remove that. And let me take a random weather. Yeah, and then the window here on top still. I can speed it up a bit, so this is fast speed, but just so you can see the sunrise, and it fades in, and I have tide, the tide goes up and down, and the music changes depending on the time of the day, and it's going to be a rainy day, and I'm probably going to be hit by a lightning or a tornado now, and I'll probably die, although I disabled the lightning damage, so no, it's a tornado. It's not entirely done yet, and it goes a bit fast, so let's do like that. But I mean, you see where the direction of the game is going to go. There's no enemies on the planet. It should be about the player against nature almost. So the planet is the enemy. So the planet is going to try to kill you in a lot of different ways. So yeah, there's a tornado passing by, but it's not entirely finished yet, as you can see. But you get the idea. And again, it's all blueprint. The entire tornado is blueprint. There is no coding anywhere. It's just effects. There's water dripping on your screen even, etc. Don't look up, then it's kind of ugly, but you can see it's a local rain cloud. So if I walk around, the rain actually follows me. So it looks like it rains everywhere. And if I go inside into the caves, it should detect that and should toggle off the rain. Although I don't dare to try it because I didn't test that. So I'm not going to do that. But yeah, see. And when it rains, all the rocks get more shiny actually as well. So the entire environment gets more reflective because it's wet. So that I can speed it up a bit. And hopefully it passes the weather. And maybe not. It might take a while. Okay, but you get the point of the game. I can probably show more gameplay in a while, a few months or sometime. So, yeah, okay. If there's no more questions, then I think that concludes it. Or, one more question. Yeah.
You said there were no life forms on the planet. Where did the stone buildings come from?
Well, that's the secret, isn't it? That's the mystery. What I want is like Lost again. I like Lost, and in fact, you know, if you look at the engine here, that's pretty much the engine from Lost on the beach. I have a beach with an engine. If you were to have sound here, it makes kind of the same kind of scary sound like Lost, so I have a lot of direct references in it. I even have a hatch in there, just to overdo it a bit. If you go here, there is a hatch in there you find in a cave. Okay, but I want that element of mystery. I want this, you know, I'm on a planet, it's really weird. I don't want to be here, but at the same time, this is really a weird place. You know, I should explore this. I want to know what's out here. So there is mystery, something has happened here. Everyone seems to have disappeared, and you're not the first intelligent being on the planet. What happened? Okay, so. Okay, yeah, thank you.